a blinding streak tore across the desert sky, and for a moment, America held its breath. When It Came from Outer Space hit theaters in 1953, it didn't just bring aliens to Earth, it brought humanity face to face with its own paranoia. Written by Ray Bradbury and directed by Jack Arnold, it flipped the invasion formula on its head, painting visitors from the stars not as conquerors but as castaways. It wasn't about war, it was about fear, the kind that hides in plain sight. These are 16 weird facts about It Came from Outer Space, the film that made the 1950s look to the skies and wonder if the real threat was already here. Number 1. A legend born from the mind of Ray Bradbury. Before the cameras rolled or the desert winds howled, It Came from Outer Space began in the imagination of Ray Bradbury, one of the greatest science fiction writers of all time. Universal hired him to craft a treatment called the meteor, and he delivered not one but two versions. One where the aliens were invaders, and another where they were peaceful travelers who crash-landed by mistake. In a move that shocked even Bradbury, the studio chose the gentler one. Bradbury's fingerprints are all over the movie. The lonely desert, the small-town dreamers, the poetic dialogue that turns fear into philosophy. He saw aliens not as monsters, but as mirrors reflecting our humanity. That was radical for 1953, when space creature usually meant kill it before it lays eggs. And just like that, Bradbury's empathy changed the shape of sci-fi forever. Number 2. The aliens weren't invaders. They were just trying to go home. In a decade when every spaceship on screen carried death rays and conquest, It Came from Outer Space did something unthinkable. It made the aliens innocent. When a strange object crashes in the Arizona desert, the townspeople assume the worst. But the truth is, the visitors just want to repair their ship and leave. They mimic human forms only to blend in, terrified of the violence they know is coming once they're discovered. This twist flipped the entire alien attack formula on its head. Instead of monsters threatening mankind, it's mankind that becomes the real threat. Suspicious, armed, and blinded by fear. The movie dared to ask audiences to sympathize with the other, years before that became common in science fiction. Long before E.T. phoned home, Bradbury's aliens were already begging for mercy. Number 3. Director Jack Arnold fought to keep the monsters unseen. Universal executives wanted a spectacle. Glowing eyes, rubber claws, the full 3D thrill show. But director Jack Arnold had something smarter in mind. He believed fear worked best when the audience couldn't see what was hiding in the dark. Instead of showing the aliens right away, he used shadows, reflections, and flickers of movement to build suspense. The first glimpse of the creature's point of view, distorted, wobbly, half-human, became one of the most memorable shots in 1950s sci-fi. Arnold argued with the studio to delay the reveal, even threatening to walk if they forced early close-ups. His restraint paid off. By keeping the aliens mysterious, he made audiences imagine horrors far worse than any rubber mask could deliver. Sometimes, what you don't see is what truly crawls under your skin.
I cut my hand, see?
Oh, is it bad?
What's wrong?
Nothing. Son, I guess. Playing tricks on me.
Number 4. Universal's first 3D experiment changed sci-fi forever. In 1953, the 3D craze was exploding. Studios were desperate to pull audiences away from television. Universal decided to gamble big, and It Came from Outer Space became their first 3D feature film. The crew used a dual camera setup that projected two reels side by side through polarized lenses. It was heavy, hot, and painfully slow to operate, but the results were jaw-dropping. Viewers swore they could reach out and touch the meteor as it screamed across the screen. Unlike other studios that used 3D for cheap jump scares, Jack Arnold used it to pull audiences into the desert, giving every tumbleweed and shadow a sense of eerie depth. Critics were stunned that a gimmick could feel poetic. Suddenly, 3D wasn't just a trick, it was a storytelling tool. It didn't just pop off the screen, it changed how people saw outer space itself. Number 5. A meteor made from fire and iron. The film opens with a blinding streak tearing across the sky. A meteor crash that sets everything in motion. But that unforgettable moment wasn't a fancy optical trick. The meteor was actually a hollow iron sphere, rigged with burning magnesium and suspended on nearly invisible wires. Special effects artists shot it in slow motion against a black backdrop, then composited it into the desert sky. The result looked otherworldly, even dangerous, especially in 3D, where it felt like the flaming rock might slam right into your face. On set, the crew nicknamed it the Fireball, because every test shot risked setting something on fire. Magnesium burns white hot, and if the timing was even a second off, it could melt the wires or explode mid-take. But the danger was worth it. The crash became one of the defining images of 1950s sci-fi. That burning ball wasn't just a prop, it was the spark that lit a new age of fear and fascination. Number 6. Filmed in the real Mojave Desert. with danger in the heat. The movie's dusty isolation wasn't just acting, it was real. Much of it came from outer space was shot on location in the Mojave Desert, near Palmdale and Victorville, California, under brutal heat that scorched the equipment and drained the cast. The desert winds blew sand into cameras, tore at lighting rigs, and left the crew constantly battling dehydration. Jack Arnold wanted authenticity, not soundstage sand, so the team hauled heavy 3D cameras across dunes that hit 120 degrees Fahrenheit by midday. Actors recalled hallucinating from the glare as they stumbled through takes, pretending to chase meteors while trying not to faint. Even seasoned technicians said it was one of the toughest shoots of their careers, but the result was worth it. The horizon looked endless, and the isolation felt real. That vast, shimmering emptiness became a character all its own, silent, watchful, and waiting for something to fall from the sky.
It's alive.
And yet it looks so dead out there.
Oh, no, it's alive and waiting for you.
Number 7. Barbara Rush won a Golden Globe and didn't expect it. When It Came from Outer Space premiered, no one thought it would turn its leading lady into an award winner. But Barbara Rush, who played Ellen Fields, brought something rare to 1950s sci-fi: warmth, intelligence, and quiet strength. Amid the paranoia and panic, she grounded the story with genuine emotion, and audiences noticed. A year later, she won the Golden Globe for Most Promising Female Newcomer in 1954, beating out actresses from far bigger films. Rush later admitted she never saw it coming. She thought the movie was just another space picture, not realizing how much its human core resonated with audiences. The award launched her into major studio roles throughout the decade, but she always looked back on It Came from Outer Space as the film that taught her subtlety could outshine spectacle. She wasn't just the heroine, she was the human heart that made outer space feel close to home.
Listen to me.
I'm sorry. We did not want to use violence. Now there's no other way.
Number 8. The uncredited composers who made space sing. That eerie, quivering sound that opens the film, the one that makes your skin crawl before a single alien appears, came from 3 men whose names never made it to the credits: Irving Gertz, Herman Stein, and a young Henry Mancini. Together, they created one of the earliest and most influential space soundscapes in cinema. Using theremins, blaring brass, and experimental tape layering, they made the desert itself seem alive, humming with invisible electricity. Universal's system at the time treated music like a studio asset, so these composers were paid flat fees with no acknowledgement. Still, their score helped define how outer space would sound for the next 2 decades: haunting, melodic, and full of mystery. Mancini would later win Oscars for Breakfast at Tiffany's and The Pink Panther, but his first brush with the cosmos started right here, uncredited, in a dark sound booth. Long before John Williams or Jerry Goldsmith, space already had a voice. They just never got to sign it. Number 9. A design too weird for this film ended up in this island, Earth. Universal's makeup department went wild, designing the aliens for It Came from Outer Space. Early sketches showed towering insectoid creatures with glassy eyes and tentacled faces. But director Jack Arnold thought they looked too grotesque for the story's tone. He wanted mystery, not monsters. The studio agreed, shelving several elaborate designs before settling on the shimmering, amorphous look glimpsed through the aliens' point of view. But those rejected concepts didn't stay buried for long. Just 2 years later, some of the same molds and ideas were dusted off and reused in 1955's This Island, Earth. Specifically, the design that became the iconic Metaluna mutant with its veiny brain and bulging eyes. What was too weird for Bradbury's poetic aliens became perfect for a full-blown cosmic showdown. Even in failure, It Came from Outer Space shaped the face of 1950s science fiction. Literally. Pretty wild so far, right? And we're only halfway through the crash site. If you're loving these hidden Hollywood stories, subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into classic sci-fi, and hit that hype button to boost the video so more old-school monster fans can find it. All right, let's head back to the desert. The night's not over, and neither are the aliens. Number 10. Bradbury's father inspired the film Small Town Lineman. In the movie, one of the most grounded and relatable characters is the humble telephone lineman, a man caught between ordinary life and extraordinary events. That detail wasn't random. Ray Bradbury based it on his own father, Leonard Bradbury, who worked as a lineman in Tucson, Arizona. Growing up, Ray watched him disappear into the desert to repair cables under endless skies, and that image stuck with him. A lone man, surrounded by static and silence, listening for faint signals in the dark. When Universal bought the Meteor, Bradbury wove that memory into the story. The lineman became a symbol of connection, a bridge between humanity and the unknown. It's why the film feels so personal. even among its special effects and shadows. Behind every scene of cosmic mystery, there's a son writing a quiet tribute to his father. In a story about alien contact, Bradbury's most powerful signal still came from home. Number 11. The Cold War paranoia that shaped every line. It came from outer space, landed right in the heart of 1953, the year America was gripped by McCarthyism, nuclear dread, and the constant fear of infiltration. Ray Bradbury and Jack Arnold used that tension as the film's invisible villain. The aliens could look like anyone, sound like anyone, be anyone, a perfect reflection of a society terrified that the enemy might already be living next door. Every scene hums with that unease. Neighbors whisper, the sheriff doubts his own eyes, and suspicion spreads faster than truth. Yet, unlike most films of the era, this one turns the paranoia on its head. The aliens aren't the danger. We are. It's our fear, our trigger-happy instincts, that turn the desert into a battlefield. It wasn't just sci-fi. It was a mirror held up to 1950s America, and it didn't blink. Number 12. Bradbury's quiet war over credit. Behind the scenes, a different kind of battle was brewing. Not over aliens or 3D cameras, but over authorship. Ray Bradbury had written the original story and detailed treatment that birthed It Came from Outer Space. Yet when the final credits rolled, screenwriter Harry Essex received sole billing. Bradbury was furious. He claimed Essex mostly tweaked dialogue while the story tone and even much of the wording were his own. Universal's legal team downplayed Bradbury's involvement, arguing his outline didn't qualify for official credit. But historians and film scholars have since compared the drafts, and they're unmistakably Bradbury's voice. The lonely desert towns, the poetic monologues, the empathy for outsiders, all classic hallmarks of his writing. He lost the credit on paper, but not in history. Fans still know whose imagination built the Black Mountain sky. Number 13. The lost message of peace ending that never made it to screen. Ray Bradbury's original treatment ended on a note of quiet wonder. After the aliens repaired their ship, they were meant to leave behind a glowing message of peace. Written in the desert sand, a final act of connection between two worlds. But Universal executives thought it was too sentimental, even risky during the Cold War. They wanted mystery, not mercy. The gesture was cut, and the film now ends with the spaceship vanishing into the stars, leaving humanity uncertain and uneasy. Bradbury reportedly mourned that decision. He saw it as the soul of his story, proof that understanding could conquer fear. The studio, worried about box office appeal, replaced it with ambiguity instead. Still, that hopeful heartbeat never vanished completely. It lingers in the film's tone, in the way the protagonist watches the sky, not with hatred, but with awe. The peace message may have been erased, but its echo still glows between the stars. Number 14. The strange rumor of comedian Maury Amsterdam in uniform. Among the oddest legends floating around It Came from Outer Space is the claim that comedian Maury Amsterdam, best known later for The Dick Van Dyke Show, appears as a background soldier during the crash site scenes. Fans have slowed down footage, paused grainy frames, and sworn they can spot him in a helmet near the meteor crater. But no production records, call sheets, or Universal payroll logs ever list his name. Film historians have tried to confirm it for decades, but it remains one of those strange Hollywood mysteries, a rumor that refuses to die. Some even think the resemblance might be a trick of the 3D lighting or film grain that distorted faces in the background. Whether it's a hidden cameo or just wishful thinking, the idea of a sitcom star accidentally wandering into alien history is a legend too fun to let go. Number 15. A low-budget hit that doubled its money. For a film made on a modest $800,000 budget, It Came from Outer Space turned into one of Universal's biggest surprises of 1953. The studio expected a niche sci-fi curiosity. Instead, it earned $1.6 million in US and Canadian rentals alone, effectively doubling its cost. That was massive for a thoughtful, dialogue-driven story that had no big stars, no city-destroying monsters, and almost no action scenes. Audiences came for the 3D spectacle, but stayed for the mystery. And word of mouth turned it into a steady earner across drive-ins and matinees. The success proved that science fiction didn't need to rely on explosions or giant ants to sell tickets. It just needed imagination and a pulse of humanity. It was proof that ideas could outgrow special effects, even in outer space. Number 16. The film that taught Hollywood to fear its own reflection. When the dust settled and the credits faded, It Came from Outer Space had done more than entertain. It had redefined what science fiction could be. It wasn't just about aliens or meteors, it was about us. It showed that humanity's greatest fear wasn't invasion from the skies, but the realization that we might be the villains in our own story. That shift, from horror to introspection, rippled through every sci-fi film that followed. Movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Day the Earth Stood Still, and Close Encounters all trace their DNA back to Bradbury's desert. Even decades later, filmmakers cite its empathy, atmosphere, and poetic tension as a turning point. It was the moment science fiction grew up, when the genre stopped shouting and started asking questions. In the end, the aliens didn't come to destroy humanity. They came to show it its own reflection. And we're still looking. It Came from Outer Space wasn't just another flying saucer flick. It was a mirror held up to the human condition. Beneath its B-movie title and cardboard sets, it carried something timeless: empathy. Ray Bradbury's story and Jack Arnold's direction turned what could have been a simple invasion tale into a warning. Not about aliens, but about us, our fear, our suspicion, our desperate need to control what we don't understand. 70 years later, its message still lands like a signal from the stars. Curiosity is braver than fear, and understanding is the only thing that keeps us human. The meteors, the desert, the echoes of 3D spectacle, they're all just surface. The real story is what happens when we finally stop pointing our weapons and start listening. So, before you go scanning the night sky, do me one favor. Subscribe for more untold stories from classic sci-fi, and hype this video so others can rediscover the film that dared to make fear feel human. Because the truth still might be out there, but maybe it's been inside us all along.